Hello, everyone.
Hello, Gamer. Hello, Mark.
Gamer, Mark, what's up? Yes, wait for a couple people to get in here. Gamer, I don't know what I would do if you didn't call me a shit at least every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I hear you. That's nice.
What's up? Just trying to get my stuff in order. I'm glad you agree, Gamer. Hello, Alexa. How are you?
Hello, hello, my sexy sister. My name is Mister
What's a goodie?
Peaches. How are you? How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hi, Nora. How's you today?
Hope you had a good day. Hey, Chris Pat. Thank you for joining us.
Did I like the new picture? Was Jimmy supposed to give me a new video? I faintly remember somebody. Hey, Chris, what's up? I faintly remember somebody was supposed to give me a new one. Lisa gave me hers, the apple orchard one. Oh, he was supposed to show me the.
I hear you, Nora. Same as me.
Yes, Chris, I did.
I'm gonna smoke a cigarette while we're waiting for more people to come in, if you don't mind, Doris.
Nope,
And I
that's
need to
fine.
make some coffee. I need to make coffee because I need coffee because I
Coffee.
wait. I need more
Coffee.
coffee.
So we'll just wait for a few more people to come in, guys, before we get started.
Yeah, because we don't want to repeat ourselves. What happens is when we don't wait, people come in and they're asking us questions, and then we have to
Right.
go back. So
To
we're gonna
repeat
give a
ourselves.
little time, but
Yeah, Chris. Hello, Alexis. How are you? My wonderful sister. I probably shouldn't be smoking on camera because I believe we are monetizing these. So I will stop my camera and I will just sit here and talk to you guys like I'm crazy. I'm a little crazy. Hey, Jerry, how are you? So we really haven't started on the story yet, Jerry. We were just waiting for a few more people to come in, just because it makes it a little bit easier with the people that have been following. Um, so that way we're not stopping and repeating. And she went to go smoke a cigarette, and she will be back momentarily. And make coffee. She needed more coffee too. If you got the if you got the Twitter thing, message me. All right, let me check my Twitter. I will check my Twitter. Aha, I did. Now we're connected, gamer. It's very exciting to be connected to gamer. Yes, I suppose I should share it out too. That would be nice, wouldn't it? If I shared it out. So, how was everybody's Friday? Mine was good. Hey, everyone in chat. I hope everyone is having a great night. You're so sweet. All right, so that's done. All right. Friday was good, Nora. Very nice. My Friday was pretty good. I think I said that already, but I'll say it again just because you guys are worth repeating myself. Yes, Jerry.
Who's that?
Lisa,
Oh.
it's our stream.
Huh?
It's our stream.
Oh, very nice.
That was my stalker. Hello, Chase and Tail. How are you? I forgot to make my payment this week, Fluffy.
Who'd you pay to stay away?
My stalker. He came over here to
Who's your
steal
stalker?
Jimmy. He came over
Who
here.
the hell would want to steal Jimmy?
No, he came over to steal cigarettes and was talking to me. So I just told people who he was. And
Oh,
uh, And then Fluffy said, I thought you paid him to stay away.
Yeah. Okay. So
Kinda hard to steal it, Jimmy. And like I always say, they would bring him back anyway.
yeah, they would. I say that about my kids too.
And they'd offer me money to take him back.
All right. So we want to get started
Sure.
because I am excited about doing this, but I also am excited about the regular rap table stream because I need a drink.
Yes, me too.
Okay. So,
All right. Do you want me to start? Or do you want to
yeah,
start?
go ahead. You can
All
start.
right, peoples. So we are covering Adrian Jones tonight. He was a 7-year-old little boy, and he was the fifth of 6 children born to his mother, who was Deanna Pierce. And her youngest 3 children, which were Madison, Adrian, and Tessa, were fathered by Michael Jones. All right, gamer, I'll take a peek. And by all accounts, she wasn't a very good mother. She had been investigated by the Kansas Department for Children and Families. She had complaints against her for child neglect. They also had reports that she had been taking drugs while she was pregnant. They did drug test her. She turned out negative at that time. And they, like I said, they had claims of neglect that they deemed were unsubstantiated. But in 2011, they found her guilty of lack of supervision and of allowing her kids to skip school. So basically what was reported was she would leave her children home alone with her 15-year-old daughter and would be gone sometimes overnight, sometimes for hours. So when her and Michael Jones separated, before they separated, he ended up having an affair with Heather, who ended up becoming his wife. So when him and Deanna, or Deanne, separated, he got custody of the 3 children: Madison, Adrian, and Tessa. Even though Deanne's mother wanted custody of them because Jones was the biological father of the 3 children, they told her he had a legal right to take custody of the children. And they were okay with it. The grandmother and Adrian's oldest sister, who they called Kiki, would visit them often. And the last time they visited Adrian in 2012, he looked healthy and happy. Kiki had even gotten $100 from Michael Jones. because he said that she had taken very good care of his children while he was away when him and their mother was not together. But unfortunately that Christmas in 2012, that was the last time that either the grandmother or Kiki saw Adrian. They hadn't really heard from them. They were not allowed to go see him. And then Michael and Heather moved from Kansas to, was it Missouri? Lisa, was it Missouri? Kansas.
I'm muted. Yeah, Missouri. Kansas.
So they moved to another state. And the grandmother, every time she called, they wouldn't let her speak to him. In 2014, she got a call from Michael Jones, who told her that Adrian was in a psychiatric hospital because he turned into a pedophile and had predator tendencies. Adrian was 6. And then when she asked, he told her she could not go see her and then abruptly hung up the phone. Later, after petitioning the hospital, and apparently, I believe with the daughter's help, she was able to get a report from the hospital that said that Adrian was a lively, curious boy, but when Michael and Heather visited, he would become quiet and sullen. And Conway, the grandmother, would ask that at that time she wasn't sure if they saw this, why they would let them take him back home. If they noticed that his whole demeanor would change when the parents walked in. So when Adrian was discharged from the hospital, he went home with Heather and Michael to a home that they rented from a woman named Jennifer Hoover's. They rented a house that was on 15 acres of property. And she said, the landlord said when she first met them that Heather was pregnant. They saw 5 girls. Adrian was not with them at the time. She said that she was told he had some issues and was in a long-term hospital getting help. And she felt like it wasn't her business to pry, so she didn't ask any further questions. The home was a 4-bedroom. It was isolated. And she had visited the home only once during their time that they rented the house. And she said everything seemed fine, although she noticed a number of surveillance cameras in the home. She figured with Michael Jones being a bail bondsman, his line of work could be dangerous, so she really didn't think about it. But soon, they believe that's when the abuse started. And Adrian was ultimately tortured over a certain amount of time by Heather and Michael Jones. And as you will see momentarily when I show you, Well, come on. So this was Adrian when he was young. He was probably about 2 years old. So this was when he was still with his mother. Um, he seemed very happy. This is also Adrian, a little bit older. And this is Adrian with his grandmother, his mother, and his siblings. So I am going to stop sharing now. In the time that, so it was 2011, they took custody of him. Um, in apparently before they moved, Heather had a case against her for neglect and possible child abuse. So they got a call saying that she would beat the living daylights out of the kids for no reason.
Now, when you say, hold on. I have a question.
Ah,
So these are the possible child abuse case and neglect were Michael's children.
yes. Yes, everyone
Okay.
reportedly said that she seemed
And I think that clears it.
to only, she never physically hit her biological children, only her stepchildren. And at one point, they made the DCF made Michael sign a paper saying that Heather would not be alone with the children. Um, and basically, this was when they lived in Missouri. They moved from Missouri to Kansas, but in when the Missouri DCF tried following up with them, they were basically told that the family had moved out of state and that Missouri was no longer a concern to them. So the investigation on the Missouri side was closed, and supposedly Kansas, where they moved, was contacted. Um, and apparently, the worker continued with concerns for Adrian and the lack of mental health services for his needs and possible physical abuse. She claims that she made Kansas City aware that Adrian disclosed physical abuse because they had visited the home in 2013 and had interviewed all of the children. And all of the children would follow what the father told them to say, that Heather didn't live in the house, that she wasn't allowed to see them, and they never ever saw her. And come to find out that wasn't true. She still lived in the home. Um, and they ended up coming to the home and interviewing the children. Adrian never said anything, but when the caseworker went there, she went there with a sheriff's deputy. When they left the house, the sheriff's deputy told her to never go there. We'll get to that, Alexa. We'll get to that.
No, does
Um, so the
I, I think SVP did for some of these cases. They just couldn't use the same names and stuff. All right, go on.
so the social worker visited the home with help from a county sheriff's department after a hotline call came in with what I said about the mom beats the living daylights out of the kids for no reason. During the meeting with Michael and Heather about the allegations, and she visited with the kids. However, the employee's reports didn't say she met with Adrian. Michael and Heather claimed he was with his uncle. Upon leaving the home, the social worker was directed by the sheriff's deputy to never go there without law enforcement. The record stated Officer Jackson motioned me over and told me that they believe Michael was bad news. And he told me to never go out there without two officers because of the fact that Michael had an arsenal of guns and they would be outnumbered. And he said that he just felt in his gut that something wasn't right. So, in a follow up appointment, the social worker, went back to the home 9 days later to try and meet with Adrian. When she arrived, the parents weren't home. She was met by a babysitter. So Adrian was able to meet with her. And according to her reports, he immediately splurted out that his father would beat him. And he said, sometimes he kicks me on the back of the head and little bones come out my mouth. My daddy keeps hitting me in the head and punches me in the stomach, and my mom keeps pulling my ears, and it really hurts.
Little
And
bones come out his mouth.
yeah, that's what he said. That's what she wrote in a report that he told her. And she said that he also stated that Heather would throw him to the floor. And that his exact words were, she keeps being mean to me. Adrian also said that his parents would lock him in his room at night so he couldn't go in the kitchen and get food. According to the report, Adrian stated he was even locked inside a closet at times. And he said, Mommy and Daddy can't feed me. I have to sleep without a pillow and blanket. Unfortunately, she reported that the parents arrived home in the middle of the interview. And at that time, she wrote that Adrian immediately changed his story. When the state employee questioned Michael and Heather about Adrian's statements, the couple denied any physical abuse, but admitted to locking Adrian in his bedroom, stating that he was a problem child. The Joneses said Adrian had mental health issues. Heather said the little boy threatened to kill her and harm his sisters. Heather also said that Adrian was hospitalized twice and that she was ordered by a physician to lock him in his room. The social worker suggested that the family use other means to protect Adrian and his siblings. She also ordered a physical exam for Adrian, including x-rays. The exams were completed the following day. The doctor said he didn't find any signs of physical abuse, although the records never showed that x-rays were actually done. According to the employee's notes, the agency could not ensure Adrian's safety if he was left in the family's home. There were concerns that Adrian would be targeted because he was Heather's stepchild. The documents also show that Heather had previously lost custody of one of her biological children to abuse allegations. Adrian's siblings were homeschooled, So this would increase the risk of abuse going unreported. The same day Adrian was examined, the social worker contacted the juvenile office to ask if they could take protective custody of Adrian. The worker documented that the juvenile office responded within minutes. The records show that the juvenile office thought Adrian should stay at home due to the child's mental health concerns and the family being honest about locking him in his room as a way to address this. The juvenile officer would prefer if the children's division would develop a safety plan and with the family and attempt intensive in-home services. A safety assessment marked as
All right,
Adrian.
hold on. Let's give him a minute. Hold on. We gotta give them a minute to see if they're understanding and following, because you're giving a lot of information at once. So, is there any questions, or is anybody lost yet? Give a minute to make sure everyone's keeping up and understanding what's going on, because when you gotta stop Doris. She gets very passionate, and when she's on a roll, she's on a roll. So is everybody understanding what is going on so far to this point?
Good evening, Ability Moms.
The pattern that we're trying. Good evening, Ability Mom. And the pattern that we're trying to show here. Hello, hanging with Mr. J. Thank you for joining us.
Mr. J, what's up?
What's your question for?
Where's my coffee?
So, do you have any questions?
Yeah, he wants to know where my coffee is. That's what he wants to know. Where's my coffee?
Mm-hmm. Because there is a pattern that we're trying to show, and if you've been with us since the very beginning, we started this series, there is a pattern that we're trying to show and get across, not only telling these children's stories, but there is a very important issue that's going on right now. So is there any questions besides Fluffer wanting his coffee? Is everybody keeping up? Are they understanding?
You caught what?
I'm glad. See my sister Whitney? My sister Whitney, she understand where we going.
All right.
We've been talking about this for 34 minutes and 22 seconds, explaining what the Adrian Jones story is, Don.
So, Brad, you're kind of new to my channel. Every Friday, I work on a topic stream with Lisa from the Ladies and Gentlemen of the Roundtable. And we cover different topics. And that's what the Adrian Jones story is. It's a topic stream that we're doing for tonight. It's got nothing to do with wrestling. It's just something special that I do. You didn't miss much, Ability of Moms.
No, I just had to let Doris breathe for a minute. She wasn't breathing. You know how she gets, Ability of Mom. We had to let her calm down and breathe. Be able, so people's brains could catch everything, all the information. All right, so if there's no questions, Doris can finish where she left off. All right, 30 seconds, Brandon. Hey, JoJo. He was a 7-year-old boy that was abused and tortured by his father and stepmother, and eventually wound up being murdered by the abuse and torture. and then later on was fed to pigs.
You weren't supposed to go that far, Lisa. That's supposed to be our
You want
policies.
to restore it? That was his 30-second.
Yeah,
Yes,
Brad.
yes,
So
Billy, your mom. She
these
is very passionate. That's why I asked her to do it.
these streams can be very hard. We do show pictures, so no, not to snakes. Um, so if it's something that you find it hard to watch, it's fine if you don't. We do just ask that you try not to make any derogatory comments about him or his family or anyone that may have been affected by the case. But some people do find it interesting, and it's
Yeah.
just,
He's entitled to their own opinion. We just ask that you be respectful.
yeah. So basically, it's just us kind of talking about stories that we found, and we do research and kind of enlighten people on different things that happened and the states that it happened, and everybody kind of talks about it and shares their opinions on the case itself.
Okay, I need to do this. Sorry.
Oh,
Folks, these discussions are
Thank
for
you, Brad.
people to ask questions, obtain as much information as possible. There is more information on the internet if you look up the names of the cases that these two ladies like to discuss. And this is an opportunity to have discussions and bring the problems of the system that governs all these cases to everyone's awareness, and not hide everything in the back shadows. So this is what these all reports are all about. It's these ladies are invested in the series of these reports, being as they're caring people and mothers and so forth and so on. And these cases are so severe that they need to be discussed in public some way or other. And this is the opportunity these ladies have decided to take to do this. And you can expect to see this every Friday night from this channel, from both Doris and from the roundtable. So, folks, please add your questions into the chat. Be respectful. Um, Emotions are going to run high both on panel and in chat, but try to remember that we're just a group of people who want to discuss, who have various different opinions across the world, but we're just trying to get this out there. Thank you.
yeah, Brad. That's why we try to keep it unbiased, so we're not offending either side. So no one's we at most we depending on what we show, we do get copyright claims, but we're okay with that. And
And Brad, most of the time, YouTube won't monetize any of the streams that we do for these children. Like none of them that we started off with Gabriel Fernandez, and then we went on. This young man is about our fifth or sixth child we've talked about, and none of the children we've talked about, um, YouTube has monetized. So yeah, I'm fully aware how YouTube isn't very helpful, even when
and
we
we
don't play clips or anything.
yeah, and we do save links that we get our information from. So um if you wanted the links to do your own research or to find more about the case, we can share. No, Miss Twin. the producer Fluffy is here. Yeah, gamer. That was the biggest reason we started this. But also to
You're
kind
right,
of
Gamer.
things that like people are very quick to, like we said it in the last stream we did, people are very quick to not pay attention to things that have nothing to do with them or affect them, and they don't choose to learn about things, so nothing changes. Sometimes, Jojo, but we also have cases that we'll be covering later that show these same agencies, the police, the other things going above and beyond too. So it's not all bad. But yes, a lot of them or some of them do
Right.
end up getting lost in what their mission should be. He died in 2015, so it's 5 years now. So he would have been 12
Are
this.
you? And most of the children that we have talked about, and most of the children we have covered already, Jojo, DCFS has definitely failed them. Um, they are called. We call them the invisible children because they were trying to get help. People were trying to help them. It was known that they were being abused, tortured, and nothing was done.
Yes, Brad. So far, all of the cases we've
Nothing.
covered have been in America.
So
All right. Any other questions?
all right. And Brad, it's kind of hard for us to cover. I mean, we can tell stories that have happened in the UK or in Australia, for an example, but without us knowing exactly how the system works there and laws, it's kind of hard for us to give an unbiased opinion, so to speak.
Right. And
So in
we
order to
with
cover stories, in order
and
to cover stories someplace else, we need someone from that country to
right. And
explain.
we if it was in another country, we would probably be, like Lisa said, limited to what information we were able to contain also or obtain. I mean, because
Hmm.
at least here we're able to look up archives of news reports and newspapers, and where we wouldn't really,
Right,
we have a more difficult time trying to do it on a case in another country.
right. Okay, Doris.
All right. So
We got
up
a
till
half hour.
now, the family lives in Missouri. So as we obtained, they started saying that Adrian was unsafe. They had marked him unsafe in 4 out of the 11 categories, which included being in danger because parent caregiver behavior is violent or out of control. The investigation found a preponderance of evidence that Adrian was the victim of neglect. While Michael and Heather agreed to accept services from Missouri's child welfare systems, within a few weeks they began skipping the appointments and were no longer cooperating. The records show that the agency made multiple attempts to contact the family. When they finally reached the couple, they were told that they no longer live in Missouri, they moved to Kansas. According to Missouri, they closed their case and contacted Kansas. It was reported that this worker reported that there are continued concerns for Adrian Jones and the lack of mental health services for his needs and possible physical abuse. She claims that she made Kansas City aware that Adrian disclosed physical abuse by his stepmother and his father during a interview held in Missouri. She said that she also reported that the children were homeschooled, so they were not seen by any outside members of the family on a regular basis, which heightened her concerns. And it wasn't known if, at the time, if Kansas Department of Children and Families followed up on those concerns. They were trying to not release their file on it. But ultimately, they did end up releasing a statement saying that it was in contact with the Joneses in 2012. Missouri records show that they continued to get calls even after the family moved out of state. Adrian's caseworker documented that she got a hold of Michael in February of 2014 after a hotline call came in saying that the Joneses were still locking Adrian in his room. According to the documents, Michael admitted to the allegations and said that he was at his wit's end and didn't know what to do, and asked if the state could take custody of Adrian, that Adrian would probably be better off. The worker wrote that she discussed with Michael that he would have to get in touch with the juvenile office and get the courts involved. After that conversation, Adrian continued to stay in the custody of Michael and Heather. The following month, the agency made contact with the family. It wasn't clear where they were living at the time. A social worker documented she visited the home. So apparently it wasn't clear if they were in the house where Adrian died. According to the record, Adrian showed the worker the marks on his wrist, and I will show you those right now. Come on. Come on.
Come on, man.
Come on.
I'm gonna refresh doors. My camera won't come back on film. Or maybe I'll just stay like this until we end.
So this is Adrian's elbow.
Mm-hmm.
See the marks on his wrists, and he told the worker it was from when his father would tie him, and you will see shortly what I mean by that. He said that it was from his father taping his arms and legs, and claimed it was from him stealing and lying.
And I want to point out again, if you guys remember that the photo we shown the last time we talked about this young man, the size of his father comparison to the size of his son. And what kills me thinking about this, and I have to add this because they're saying they're blaming this little boy for a whole bunch of stuff, demented stuff. He was evil. He was, but the father was a monster compared to his son. And when he died, he was just skin and bones. So there's no way this dad is trying to tell me he had no control over this boy. And the stepmom, she was pretty skinny too, but toward the end of this young man's life, she was bigger than him. So that's what I don't understand. Like, in all the cases we have covered so far, the fathers or the stepfathers are humongous men. They're big men that are pounding on these children. I had to throw that out there. Okay, go on, Doris.
All right. So when he showed the social worker his wrists and said it was from his father taping him for stealing and lying, she documented that Mike and Heather told her they are done keeping him and staying with them was not an option. And she wrote that she explained to them if they removed the child, that the parents would be faced with abandonment charges. And Heather said that they couldn't be charged due to their line of work. It would affect their business. Therefore, Adrian remained in the home.
And Brad, yes, first and foremost, it is the parents' fault. But there is agencies here in the United States that are put in place to protect these children when the parents aren't doing it. And these agencies have failed every child we've talked about.
So, Brad, this would be the third time that the father has asked for one of the two agencies to take his son. And his son remained in the home.
We'll get there. We'll get to there, Brad. We'll get there. Probably not tonight, but next Friday. But we will get to that. And we covered this the last time we talked about this young man. Because when you look into this young man's story, that's all that is remembered about this little boy is that he was fed to pigs. It is horrific, it is horrible, but that's not all this little boy was. And me and Doris talked about this the last time we talked about this young man. He's not just the little boy that was fed to pigs. He has a name, he was abused, and he was tortured. And at one time, he was a beautiful, happy little boy. So,
I got more.
Right. So, what happened with the pigs should not be more important than the photos you are seeing right now. Him sitting in that dirty ass water in a pool at their house was a form of punishment. Him being on this backboard for hours at a time was a form of punishment. That's him before he died, sitting in the shower where he was made to stay for a punishment. That was another form of punishment. We're not talking about minutes, we're talking about hours. Again, he's in that shower. What did they call that shower, Doris?
A cell.
That's a cell. They called it a cell. So him being fed to the pigs is not what is most important to this young man. And even the media, that's all they focus on. When they talk about this young man, they call him the pig boy. That pisses me off because he has a name, he is a human being. That is an action that happened to him. That is not who he is. Okay, Doris. I have my little rant. Sorry. I knew
Okay.
the thing was gonna come up and strike a nerve.
Um, so a couple of weeks after this happened, um, hold on. Um, the social worker reported she received an email from a psychiatric hospital where Adrian was brought to. The staff reported at the hospital that they were concerned because Adrian had been there for a few days and his parents never called to check on him. Heather stated at one point, due to Adrian's behaviors, they were willing to take the abandonment charges. The social worker said staff at the hospital reported to her that the parents said inappropriate things around the child, such as calling him a pedophile. The hospital staff also said they did not notice any behaviors from Adrian and that he was an easygoing kid to work with. The staff alluded to the idea that Michael and Heather were the reason that Adrian acted out. They said that the parents feel they have no role in Adrian's behavior. The family was reluctant on taking parenting classes and doing family therapy. That same day, Michael told the social worker Adrian could come home, but that he was upset because his son was making him look bad. According to the record, Michael said he picked up Adrian from a different facility on a prior occasion and that Adrian threw a fit on the unit and that people were looking at him like he was a victim. The social worker said Michael continued to tell her that the therapist asked Adrian if he was ready to go home, but that Adrian said only if things changed. And Michael expressed a 5-year-old should not have control. The social worker documented that Michael said he is not going to be told to do what to do by a 5-year-old. And Michael continued to tell the social worker, according to documents, that people get sucked into Adrian's plan. Adrian's father claimed he and Heather were the victims, not Adrian. And that is where that file ends. And one of the news reports that I read had contacted the Missouri Department of Social Services and asked questions about policies and procedures to find out why Adrian was left in the home. And apparently the department had refused to respond. It was soon discovered after Adrian's death that the couple had planned to skip Kansas also and just move. They were going to move to Utah, apparently, and were going to start a new life. And they were going to leave Adrian's remains and hope that no one ever knew Adrian even existed.
Now we're gonna point out again, there is questions in the chat, so some of them pictures may need it. Hello, Susan. So Brad wanted to see. Brad said, "Wait, go back to the pig stores. What punishment is that?" And the gamer said they did that so he couldn't bend down with the boards. He was as starved as a concentration camp victim. When I saw them pictures, gamer, that's exactly the first thing I thought of. Sadly,
So
is I thought he was like a concentration camp victim too, because yeah, that's what it looked like.
what they would do is they would strap cutting boards to his chest and his back and wrap his arms to them. Um, and like Lisa and Gamer said, it's so he couldn't bend over. And they would at these times they would put soap in his mouth, like a bar of soap. Um, and they would taunt him with food.
Right.
They knew he wouldn't be able to reach or eat.
Right. And he wasn't allowed to go to the restroom. So if he went to the bathroom, he was going to the bathroom on himself.
You, did I send that?
That's why he in the one picture you see he's wearing a diaper because they won't even let him use the restroom.
So that's with him with the cutting board on his chest and boards, his arms basically ace bandaged to boards and his hands wrapped, and they would have soap in his mouth so he couldn't open his mouth and he couldn't put anything in his mouth even if he wanted to.
Is there any other questions? There's some good questions, and thank you, Gamer, for your observation. That is very true.
Thank you, Brad, for your questions, and I
Yes,
understand.
Brad. You're fine, Brad. Don't need to apologize. Um, Doris had also mentioned the last time we talked about this young man that at one point he was caught in the neighbor's trash pulling garbage out to eat because he hadn't eaten in a while and he was hungry.
And come to find out, the security cameras that the landlord had said she noticed when she went to visit them, that was so, as one person put it, that Adrian was basically under surveillance 24/7. So they would know if he took food at night, or, and that was why they started locking him in what they called his cell, which was basically a shower stall um, with a cardboard sheet screwed to it so he couldn't get out.
You have a good night as well, Brad. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your questions and you being interested in the topic. Me and Doris do these things not just to tell the story, but like to get people interested. And the more questions you guys ask, and the more interested you guys get into the topics we're discussing, just helps me and Doris realize that we are doing something good. And in a minute way, we're making a difference.
And Brad, more than likely, this will be more than a one stream night because we try to limit the time on it, just so people don't get overwhelmed. And also, it tends to wear on Lisa and I also, doing the research, and it definitely runs our emotions. So we tend to try to keep it to like an hour and a half stream. So if we need to, we break them up into more
Right.
than one Friday.
Well, you guys will see me trying to control my emotions a lot when we get into this young man's biological mother. I have to control, self control. I have to be reminded, self control.
Yeah, Brad, we stream, it's showing on my stream, but also it's on the Ladies and Gentlemen of the Roundtables channel also, because it's a dual project we're working on.
Right.
So it does stream on two channels.
Right. And Doris is a member of the roundtable, so it's only fair that her channel gets just as much of the attention as the roundtable because she puts in just as much work. And lately, the last few weeks, more than me because I've been working and stuff. So she needs notoriety too, and she needs to be appreciated for her hard work too on her channel.
Oh, thanks.
Good night, Brad.
Good night, Brad. Thank you for joining us. And I'm glad you're interested.
Is there any questions in the chat? Anything um, no one's understanding? Anything at all? And just another quick reminder, me and Doris has said this since we started doing this with Gabriel. If you've been with me and Doris since we started this from the beginning, you know how the Gabriel case is very near and dear to me. Like that was the case that hit me. This case is Doris's Gabriel. I do have to say, what happened to Gabriel was bad. But and we're not gonna do the one child was worse than the other because everything that's happened to these children is bad and it could have been prevented. But this young man, how they initially ended his life, is pretty bad, you know. And he dealt with this his whole life, where Gabriel only had to deal with it for 6 months. Not that that's any better. I'm just saying. So the point where we're doing this is because, again, is to tell these children's stories, to give them a voice. Because when their voice needed to be heard, it wasn't being heard. No one cared. And it may be a little too late for them, but if we keep talking about it and we keep pushing these stories and people stop realizing that if they just turn their head and, oh, it's not my problem, it's not my problem, and we can put notice out there that, yes, this is our problem, because at the end of the day, these are all our children. Even if you don't know them, you see a child being abused, you see something that's not right, speak up, say something, and don't give up. You know what I mean? If you are a teacher, if you are a doctor, whatever, don't let that child go home. If you know that child is being abused, for an example, Gabriel, the last time Gabriel's teacher saw him, he was fucked up from the head to his toes, bruised. Even though his teacher tried her hardest and she did exactly what she was supposed to do as a mandated reporter, at that moment, you should not have let him go home. Should have made the cops be called, and then a different caseworker would have came in. And once Gabriel went to the hospital, because once the cops came, he couldn't have been denied medical. They would took him to the hospital reported, and then a different caseworker. It could have saved that child's life. But as we were explained before by B ladies, there's unions and stuff that the teachers, as a human being, as a mother, I would not give a fuck about my job, about a union. I would have not let that boy go home.
Well, and that's like in this case with the hospital, when
Right.
they noticed how Adrian was when his parents weren't there to versus how he was when the parents were there. And when the parents weren't wanting to take him home or weren't calling on him or visiting him,
That's neglect.
that's neglect. That should have been a sign. And yes, they contacted the DCF, but nobody did anything.
Right. And if the parents are saying, I don't want this child, I don't want this child, I don't want this child, they should not have been scared to keep this child.
Right.
And the child should have been taken.
I think that's part of what made this case so real for me is this father, yes, he did ultimately cost his child his life, but he reached out for help and no one would help him. They threatened him. They threatened to press charges against him. And ultimately, that's what ended up. This is the end of the circumstance for that.
So we're trying to get the message across that, for one, not just in California, I mean, yeah, but in other counties, the agencies that are put in place to protect these children, when the people that are supposed to protect them aren't, they're not doing their job. Law enforcement isn't doing their job. Um, and this needs to be an issue. And we're going to reiterate again, this is why the Gabriel Law is so important and it needs to be passed, not just in California, everywhere. It needs to be everywhere. In all over the United States, this law needs to be implemented because then the police, child protective services, DSS, the hospitals, they all can share this information together. So then one can't say, I didn't know. And then, like this young man's parents did, they moved to another county, another state to start over. Well, if Gabriel's Law was implemented, that couldn't happen because it will follow them there too. Just like if you're a felon, your felony follows you no matter what state you go to. It should be the same for child abusers. Should be the same. But it's not. Just saying. That's why we do this. That's the point we're trying to get across. Doris, you okay? Blink.
Yes, I'm okay.
Blink twice if you need help. Wait, I can't tell. That wasn't fast. that was too fast. Hold on, slow down. Twin said I'm spending time with my nephews, so I'm not listening enough. And back and forth. Oh, it's all right, Twin.
All right. So
Go on. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so along with the torture, basically these people starved him to death. Um, and like we said, they reached out for help everywhere they turned, basically refused to help him, even though Adrian himself were telling them that he was being abused, because his story would change when his parents were around. They deemed that his stories were inconclusive and that he never kept his story straight.
And it's also assumed that they bought the pigs because they already knew that they were going to kill them.
And actually, delving deeper into that, they bought the pigs, I believe, when he died. And according to a statement I found from the police officers that investigated and took their statements, ultimately Adrian ended up being kept in his cell for days. And when he could no longer stand on his own power, they strapped him to a chair in the cell. And that is how Adrian died, strapped to a chair. And the police officer said He was there for 2 weeks after he died.
Wow.
They basically lived with this boy's body in that shower stall for 2 weeks.
And I don't know if anyone's ever smelt the smell of decomposing bodies. It's horrible. There is fluids and as that.
Basically, yes. When the beatings weren't making him right, in their opinion, they used food against him and would lock him in the cell, or they would make him stand outside, like Lisa said, for hours. And they would cuff his hands together and shackle his feet and put food on the ground in front of him, or water on the ground in front of him in a cup, knowing that he couldn't physically bring it. There's one video I saw that he was trying to use his mouth to lift the cup to get a drink of water because his hands were tied behind his back. I believe so, Ability of Mom. There must have been, because this was looked like almost like a half bath or a 3/4 bath that just had a shower stall. And you don't see much of the room, but it looked like it might have been in like a basement. And the detective, whose name was Stuart Littlefield, that was one of the people that investigated the case, said that nothing could prepare them for what they had found. And he said the abuse and torture was only compounded by the fact that Michael and Heather systematically documented it. All those pictures that you saw, they took themselves. They basically documented this boy deteriorating before their eyes. So they had videotape of this, they had pictures of it.
I read an article today where the stepmother even posted some of this stuff on her Facebook.
Yes. She actually posted on her Facebook that she had wanted to do a, how did they say it, a remake of a the zombie show. What the hell is it?
Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead, where when one of the little girls gets bitten or something, someone tells her to look at the flowers and then shoots her in the back of the head. That's what the mother documented, the stepmother documented she wanted to do. They stopped referring to him by his name. On her posts, she would just call him the boy. That's what she would refer to him as. And they would talk about it, they would show pictures. They had found that she was actually researching straitjackets to restrain him even more than they already had done. And then when the police spoke to his sisters, they had said that what made it even worse was when the father told the detective that Heather would tase Adrian for 15 to 20 seconds at a time. And while he was testifying, he stayed quiet for 20 seconds just so the people in the court could realize just how long 20 seconds was,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're in agony. And he said, imagine the screams of that little boy during that 20 seconds.
And just like we explained with Gabriel, him being bound and like that, he had to have had some type of rib damage. So like with Gabriel, Gabriel lived with the fractured rib, and when you're that young to deal with that, it's hard for an adult to deal with that pain. But for these children, it had to be excruciating. So even when you're trying to take a breath, it hurts. So through all this, he's trying to breathe with some type of damage to his ribs. There's no way his ribs wasn't damaged when he was bounded like that for hours, and it was tight. If it's swelling up his elbow and his ankles, it was tight. So there's no way there wasn't no damage to this boy's ribs. So I can't imagine.
Um, and like I was saying, the landlord had found out that they were going to move again.
Mm.
Um, this was after the 2 weeks after Adrian died. They needed a way to dispose of his remains. So they went out and bought feeder pigs and then did not feed them. And when, according to the detective, when they couldn't stand the stench anymore, they threw his body into the pen. And their plan was to move again and nobody would ever know about Adrian.
Now, mind you, people, this wasn't the neatest family. Doris showed pictures 2 weeks ago of their kitchen and the bedroom. You saw the pool that boy had to sit in. They are not. They were not the cleanest. Their house was not kept up. It wasn't clean. I read an article about them talking about when they went into the house and how dirty and filthy it was and the odor in the house. So even though whatever odor was in that house isn't in comparison to that little boy's body just rotting away down there, But it's just a reminder that these aren't neat people. The house wasn't well kept. It wasn't neat. So
And when they kept him in the pool or they kept him outside, if anything, he would be in his underwear. No shoes, no socks, no clothes. And they would do it all times of the year. When it was cold out, and he would be out there for hours. Right, gamer. They would make him carry tiki torches. And if he put them down, he would either get beat or he would be made to stay out there even longer. They would make him stand there for hours with his hands held high, and he wasn't allowed to put his arms down. And there was one video that I watched where it's their surveillance video, and you can hear the stepmother and another child watching Adrian stand outside, shivering, trying to move around just to warm himself up. And he was cuffed or had his hands tied behind his back. And then when she did give him food, she claimed on the video, she says that she gave him applesauce with dirt and bugs in it.
Oh my god.
And that's what he was eating. And the little girl on the video, it doesn't say who she is. She could be heard saying that he was annoying her by whining that he was cold. So they not only tortured this boy, but they desensitized the other children, the older children, to it. So like they almost, in that video it seemed like that girl was enjoying it as much as the stepmother was.
And then another way is kind of like the other stories we told, Two Doors, is it may not be so much that she really enjoyed it. She just didn't want to be like Adrian.
Right.
So what do as a child? You know what I mean? You see
Yeah.
this happening to your brother, you're gonna pretend like you enjoy it too. You're gonna do whatever it takes so you're not like him.
Mhm.
You know, but they could very well have desensitized them kids too. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, you know.
Right. Um and while Heather was waiting for trial, this is how all these pictures and videos were found, by the way. She asked her landlady to go into her house and gave her access to her iCloud account and asked her to send her pictures of her children so she could see them and have pictures of them. If it wasn't for that fact, they wouldn't have all the evidence they have. But she had posted a message saying that she took responsibility for the children and that she loved and cared for them, but that she was only one person and that there was no controlling or getting away from that man when he was cycling. And that he had cameras everywhere in my home, in all the rooms, all even outside. She talked about a time when he was stopped by the police. He was pulled over with the 6 girls in his car. He had loaded assault rifles and handguns and drugs. And he kept threatening to kill them all, she said. And that was where.
Does everybody understand what Doris means when she said Michael was cycling? You understand what that terminology means? Because some people may not. I've lived with that. I fully understand it. Sometimes I still go through it with my ex. So basically, cycling is like when you. My ex is bipolar, so when he cycles, he is having a manic issue. So when you're manic and you're cycling, you have your really high, and then when you're high, you're happy. But there's always a hard crash, and you never stay up there. So as you're crashing, you're cycling, and your brain is going a mile a minute. You got 6,000 ideas, and all of them sound good. And then with my ex, he would smoke and smoke and smoke and get high and get high and get high, and he wouldn't stop. And then he crashed. And when he crashed, that's when, like Michael did. Oh, well, he never threatened to kill us or harm us. He always threatened to harm himself. And when he crashed one time, if it wasn't for me and Lauren and a friend of ours, he would have actually went through it at that time. So basically, that's what they mean when they say he was cycling.
And apparently, it was during one of these times that Heather ended up calling the police and reporting a domestic assault. When the police got there, she told them that he had shot at her while she was holding her youngest daughter. And then broke down and told them to look for the bones in the pig pen. And that was when they had found Adrian's remains.
Mm.
And right off the bat, she started saying that it was all the father, and then they found all of the video and photographic evidence that she also participated in the abuse. So, Lisa, do you want to end before we get into the court? And
Yeah, because it's already midnight.
Yeah.
And I need a drink. At least one. Oh boy.
So that is the brunt of the case. So next week we will delve a little more into the extended family and what happened in court and some of the after Adrian's death.
Right. And it's gonna take an army to keep me calm. We get into the biological mother.
Which is why I'm saying that we stop now and
Yeah.
All right, people. So, like we always say, we have links. If you would like links, let us know. Unfortunately, as much as it bothers me so much to say this, you can look up Adrian Jones, Pig Boy. And because apparently there's another Adrian Jones that is a murderer.
And a football player.
Yes, so you might get conflicting reports if you don't specify.
I found out all of them when I Wikipedia'd it.
Yeah. And it kills me that we have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only way to make sure that you're looking at the right case.
Right.
I have videos on my YouTube under the playlist is Adrian Jones. Feel free to check those out. There's news reports and things like that. There's some of the video surveillance that I could find. Any questions?
Yes, any questions before we wrap this up? So we can get
a drink on?
A drink on.
You mean Doris? I'm the one you told me to check Twitter. And yes, I will check fucking Twitter. Gamer. Jesus. You're like my husband, for Christ's sakes. Can you?
Shut up, Doris. Jeez, Fluffer says. All right, everybody. We're going to end this, and we're going to go to the round table for a regular round table shenanigans stream. Hope to see as many people there. I love you all. Thank you all for the support every week for me and Doris with this stuff. Love you all. Bye.